see you again.
Really good.
Study it.
I said, last year, I
Been a little
talked to her,
bit.
and she was
Yeah.
like, well, I don't know.
Sure
I
we
don't
were
know.
gonna make
And then
it
I
through
said, well, if you're not
winter,
gonna put in.
Ed Taves and Steve Felix. I always forget your name, sir.
Ben
Ben.
Nunnally. Yep.
What was the last name?
Nunnally.
Nunnally.
Ben's our play-by-play guy when it comes to projects. He keeps us in line, keeps us organized.
Yeah. Well, we always, whether you have anything or not, we just enjoy getting together with Fish and Game and you guys and other agencies about once a year just to see what's going on, and because people sometimes ask us and think we're supposed to know and we don't, and so it's nice to just see you and hear what's happening and what your plans are for our area. And so thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Well, maybe we'll just have, and I know you guys have been through this before, but we'll have Ben just kind of run through on the map, the projects that we have in our plan, and you can kind of describe that and answer any questions that you guys have.
Okay. And if y'all want to just jump in with any additions or additional commentary, or if you have questions, just stop me and we can talk about any of these specifically. So yeah, you've seen this map before. Basically, it just lists all the projects that we currently have on the books in Mineral County. On the top lines, kind of the location, I-90, and then the reference post or milepost locations. Then there's our project name, the UPN numbers, just kind of our coding, internal MDT coding, and then there's a little brief description of the scope and then in parentheses the anticipated year for construction. So starting up at the pass, I guess, and working our way down from west to east, we have the Exit 5 East is the name of the project, and it's a chip seal project for pretty good stretch there. It's covering a lot of those crack and seat projects that we did several years back to chip over those, and so it goes from about milepost 6 down to about 23 down towards Henderson there. It's already been let to contractor or to contract, and talking to our construction operations engineer, he was saying that we also change ordered in a little bit of milling at the bridge ends as well, and then they're looking probably mid-August for actually doing the bulk of that chip seal work. So that'll be coming up later this summer for that project.
And that's both lanes?
Yeah, both sides, yep. Then we have the Drexel East and West project. This is the last of all of those crack and seat projects that we've been doing from 23 to about 28, and it'll be like those previous projects where we'll re-crack the existing concrete and then overlay it with about 4/10 asphalt and then chip seal over the top of that. The westbound section was done last year, so I've already seen that. And then they'll be finished. They're just about finished with all the eastbound paving, and then the remaining work they'll still have a little bit of bridge work and guardrail ends, and then the final chip seal. So, but the paving for the most part is pretty much done now. So that project will get wrapped up this year as well. Off to the side, kind of down there on the lower left side of the sheet, there's 3 projects they're all bridge projects, and they all have multiple bridge locations, and those are all listed out there. The one that's currently under construction is that top one there, the bridge deck treatments JOC job order contract, and so that one's currently underway. They've started on basically on the eastern end of that project, so they're currently working west, so they're about in the Quartz Flats rest area right now. So they've done a few of the bridges, and they're starting to work their way towards Superior and then further on up towards the pass. So that one's underway as well, and that includes like some thin overlays on the bridge decks and some various other repairs to the concrete and fixing cracks and all that stuff. So that one's underway, and it's got I don't know, about 18 bridges or so on there. There's two other bridge projects that aren't under construction yet. There's one to address the various steel bridge substructures or superstructures that we have, and that one it has been programmed but hasn't been designed yet, so we don't know exactly when that'll get constructed, but it's starting to get worked on. So that project's in the hopper to do some various repair work to the bridge or to the steel elements of those bridges. And then there's another bridge deck rehab project to address even more bridges, and that one's scheduled for 2018. And again, there's a couple handfuls of bridges listed there as well. So a lot of bridge work throughout the whole I-90 corridor in Mineral County, and then also some even more going in towards Missoula as well. So definitely have quite a bit of things that they're working on as far as keeping those bridges in good shape. Back to the road projects, we got the St. Regis East project. This is a concrete rehab type of project. It's just been programmed within the last year, so it's still pretty early on in the design process, and we haven't slipped it into what potential year we'll build it yet. We'll probably be looking at either 18 or 19 potentially. We'll know that better later this year when we start putting together our update for our 5-year plan that we do each year. But that includes diamond grinding of the concrete surface to kind of smooth it out, doing some dowel bar retrofitting between the concrete slabs to help lock those together better, replacing some of the slabs that have faulted and cracked up. And so that project is in the works, and that goes down to milepost 43 and a half, and then starting at 43 and a half down to about 50, we have the Superior West project. This project is doing some microsurfacing, which is kind of a real thin overlay, and then a chip seal on top of that. It's been let, and the contractor's starting to work on doing some of some mill fill on some of the cracks and joints out there to seal those up before they do the asphalt work. So that's underway as well for construction this summer. And as we continue on down, there's a project, I don't really know much about it because it hasn't really started yet, but there's a project to eventually do some work at the Quartz Flats rest area and do some reconstruction of that rest area, and I don't know exactly what all, if it's going to include some parking lot work or if it's just buildings or what. I don't know if you've heard anything about it, but it's new, so there's not a whole lot to
It'll be
report
one
on
of
it.
those, that they'll open the project up and, you know, are there things we need to do to bring things up to code, structural, is there some things on the parking lot? So we'll develop it in our rest area program. And, you know, the top need in the Missoula district was the Bearmouth Rest area. And so that one, we're nearing completion on that. And so this is, you know, they asked us, what's the next one? And so Quartz is our one we're gonna take a look at. So, next time, or whenever we meet in the future, we'll have a better idea of what we're looking at.
But it might be something similar to Bearmouth where we're talking new structure.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I mean, it could
Could be.
be
Yeah,
something
could.
like
We've
that.
got some fairly major septic issues at Denimore right now that we're working through. That potentially could impact what happens at Quartz.
Oh,
So,
Right.
yep.
So we'll see, but it's been identified as, you know, we wanna do something, just not sure exactly what, you know, what it'll be. I mean, could be new structures, could be parking lot work, hard to say, but we know we need to address it, so it's a lot of use.
is there some mechanism for counts, use on those? or-
We do count.
You do?
Daily door counts, yep. We do.
Is that somebody?
They're automatic.
Automatic.
They're automatic
Yeah.
counters. Yep.
How do they work? They're a electronic eye or something?
There's the one at, we've got a new system at Bearmouth that's kind of on a camera that counts as you come past a certain area. And then some of the older ones have eyes as you walk through just triggers as you walk through. So,
And
Having
our counts are always high.
oh, the use is amazing.
Yeah.
It's incredible how much use they get.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously you're doing traffic count on the I-90 out here. Is there something fairly recent for that? Or I was gonna email and I forgot to ask about that, but sometime I'd be a little curious about the traffic count. on
Just the
I-90.
traffic counts just on the interstate?
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually, we can send you a link to we have traffic counts published on our website, to
Oh,
the
okay.
traffic section.
Okay.
And they do it by,
She just came out with last year's counts.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, 2016's count just got published earlier this week, I heard.
Okay.
And so,
Yeah, there's some interactive maps on our website that you
And I'll tell you
can go
that-
around and find each count location.
and I don't know, did they post truck percentage? Do you know?
I think so.
Usually they do.
Or the number of trucks.
The number of trucks.
Not exactly. the
Our truck
but you
percentage
can
on
divide
I-90
the two.
here is extraordinary.
Yeah.
I mean, the only area I know of in the state that's got a higher concentration is the Billings to Laurel piece, which makes sense, just by population and then the commute. But other than that, that's the only, we call it the purple area, because when you get above certain volumes and that, it turns purple. But all of our stretch is you know, it's just one level down from that, and and we definitely have a lot worse weather than they do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the sanitarians conference this year, they wanted me to talk about truck wrecks and all the food, you know, that we get to scatter all around up there and stuff. And so I guess Gallatin, they still say that Gallatin has more food truck wrecks than mineral, but we're right up there with them and
Right,
stuff.
you have to be close.
Especially after what we saw this winter.
Yeah.
I think I counted, I don't know, Steve, I think it was in February, maybe early March. I think I counted upwards into 12 or 14 consecutive days where we had one truck wreck on the interstate in District 1, every single day, at least one.
Yeah.
Whether it was in the median or shoulder, or whatever the case was.
Whatever they did, yeah.
It was pretty remarkable, really.
You guys probably could make money if you had enough video cams up there to video those wrecks and sell them to somebody.
Some of those would be amazing how they end up where they end up.
Yeah.
That truck that he was carrying 2 rolls of wire, but he pushed 3 of those meridians clear across the 2 lanes, and it's like, excuse me, you're going this way and the meridians are this way. How do you do that. I mean, that,
Roman's seen that forever. I don't know how
yeah.
to do it, you know, but they do it.
Yeah, chance and random chance and, yeah.
Speed and weight.
Yeah, speed and weight, yeah.
yeah.
Speed times weight, momentum.
All right. Last few projects, got the Nemo Creek Culvert Lining Project. That one's complete now, where we went in and repaired a big culvert underneath the interstate and armored it up. And then we have a project at about milepost 70 where we're doing some slope stabilization work. This is part of a district-wide project that's got about 7 or 8 sites scattered throughout the district. So this is just one of the locations. We're doing this project through our design-build process. So we're in the process of selecting a team that will both do the design for each site and then also construct it as well. So we just contract with the one team, but they're looking to award that around late June to that team, and then once that happens, then they'll start.
Is that
working
where
on
that
the
bank
design.
is sloughing away, stabilizing that? Is that the slope they're referring, or are you talking about slope of the road?
The bank, yeah.
Yeah.
Bank.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, that's what it is. Yep.
Eastbound.
Yeah, it would be
I think
eastbound.
it's gonna
Be
be
eastbound, wouldn't it?
eastbound. so,
Yeah, where it wants to slough down there at
Down,
Sear
down.
towards the river.
Yep, that's the place.
Yep. So,
So we've identified, I mean, it's all, as it says, it's District 1, so there's all kinds of spots. I think we have some probably up in Lincoln County and
oh
just
yeah, they're
Sanders.
scattered all over.
So the reason that we chose this method is, you know, it's, I mean, slope work is kind of a specialty. So we figure we'll get the best bid and the best value by just design building the thing. Then they can hire the appropriate staff to do the design in each area, and then the contractor, you know, they'll just be mobile. They'll work X amount of time to fix the interstate and then go up to Lincoln County and do whatever they need up there. And we found that that's probably the best way to handle those kinds of things. Otherwise, if you try to go our normal process, it's gonna be cumbersome and more expensive because you're bidding out everything separately, so.
Yeah, and this is you can see there it says phase 2. We've already done one round of these sites in the phase 1 project, and it was also a design build project, and that was pretty successful. So we're doing it again on another batch of locations. So it being fairly flexible in that regard, it's undetermined whether they'll get to this site this year or next year. It could be either one. We don't know. That'll be up to the contractor. So that's in the works. And then there's a couple little railroad crossing projects. I really don't know anything about those. One at Daigle Lane and one at Sawmill Gulch Road.
The sawmill one's pretty much complete, except for,
okay.
have they got the concrete in yet? The crossing?
I was at the River Edge having lunch and I saw an MRL guy and he told me that somebody changed something on it and they're not gonna do the concrete. They're just gonna stay wood, so.
Oh, last time I talked to Dustin, he said the concrete was ordered, so.
Oh,
Anyway, the sawmill one is, the arms are in, and the Dago one, I didn't know if that was gonna happen this year or not. It hasn't been started, so.
Okay. So there's those two, and then the last thing I have on here is kind of off to the side, but it's a TA project up there in St. Regis to do the path there along on the, I guess it's the east side of Highway 135 for a stretch there, and that's tentatively going to start construction on that next week.
wow.
The contractor's finishing up getting some of their permits all put together, so if they can get all that squared away, they'll probably be out there working starting next week. And those are all the federal aid projects that I have listed in the county. Do you have, are there any other maintenance projects? I know we've already done some work on Highway 135.
135, at least from the maintenance perspective, is
Yeah.
done. We do not have much planned this year, because our budget has taken quite a beating, maintenance-wise, from the legislature. Overall, we're looking at about a 20% reduction in our maintenance program in the Missoula area. So funding's tight, money's tight.
Steve was explaining to me that the legislature's gas tax approval only goes to, bridges and roads. It doesn't go towards maintenance at all, so their maintenance budget is still hurting despite any money that people thought was going to DOT.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically the increase that we were allocated will go towards the contracts, go towards our, I mean, typically MDT, it's more involved, but in a nutshell, the majority of MDT's staff and forces is the construction program and the maintenance program. And so the construction program, that's typically our federal aid process where we do our planning, our design, and our construction for the highway projects. And then maintenance is not federally aid eligible activity by the federal rules. So everything for maintenance is state funded strictly. So yeah, that's where we're at.
So they actually reduced your budget for maintenance by 20%.
That's what it's looking like.
Wow.
Right now. We have 3 open positions, 3 tech positions. We have one at Lookout, one at Superior, and one at Alberton right now that we don't think we're gonna be able to fill those positions. So, yeah. So it affects everything. So,
Yeah.
plus we're looking at quite a reduction in our chlorides, so. Traditionally ran 25% salt sand in our piles up out of St. Regis and Lookout. Looks like that could be drastically reduced. So, we've got some challenges coming our way. On from a maintenance perspective.
Let's hope for a mild winter, huh?
Yeah, we are.
Milder than the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ben, do you know anything about, I think it was a meeting when Shane was here, but there was talk about that Sear Bridge, the one right off the Sear exit. Is that going to be adjusted or altered date-wise with any of the budget things, or is that still slated?
Well, currently, there's not a programmed project for that as of yet, so that's why it's not even shown on the map, because it hasn't been programmed as a project.
Yeah, when we talked, it sounded like it probably was 4 or 5 years down the road, but I'm just wondering, have you heard with the recent cuts and maintenance and money going to other things,
Well, I know
do you know if
it's
that's been jeopardized?
hard to say just yet. We'll
Yeah.
have a better feel in October with the Red Book.
Okay.
So one shift in, well, that was a good time to talk about it. So, we're gonna shift some of our philosophy a little bit at the department, and there's a lot of reasons why. I mean, one of them is certainly budgetary, but one of the problems we have in District 1 is we fight preserving the roads versus the capacity issues. This time of the year, you go to Missoula, you go to the Bitterroot, especially if you go to the Flathead, I mean, we have capacity issues. We can't keep up. I mean, for example, Highway 2 going into the Glacier Park, the 2-lane stretch between Columbia Falls and West Glacier, you can't keep up. And I know the Park Service is having the same problem. Having said that, one of the things that we're looking at doing is we've put preserving the infrastructure as the priority overall. And so that extends to bridges as well. And I think, talking to our chief engineer, one of the things we're looking at globally, and so there's 5 districts in the state, and we all get allocated a certain amount for interstate projects, national highway projects, and primary projects, and there are other programs. One of the things we're looking at is taking a little bit more of our core funding and putting them in the statewide bridge program, which includes the off-system bridge program, and I know Kent Barnes is aware of this one, our bridge engineer. So it is on his radar. So I think it's gonna be discussed, and at some point it will be nominated for work.
Oh, okay.
I can't answer when yet. Well, I hope to have a better idea when, next time we meet with you guys, you know, say in the fall or something after our red book, simply because if we take, you know, we haven't decided how much we're gonna allocate to more of the bridge projects, and it's not just off-system, it's on-system, it's National Highway Bridge Program. That'll give us a little bit better feel for, you know, where we're at in the process. It's a lot like the secondary roads program. You know, it's always this moving target where one year you think you're here, and then you get a little bit more refined with your estimates, and then you go, guess we're not. So you readjust, and then, you know, some districts, some areas have problems. Like right now, we're having a problem with acquiring the rest of the right-of-way for the Frenchtown Frontage Road, which is our big secondary project. And so that affects the mix year to year. So, long story short, definitely on our radar. Kent Barnes and Chris Harden, our bridge engineer, are aware of it. They've been involved in the discussion, so it will be nominated at some point. I just don't know when.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and so on that same note, just a couple other projects that we have, not in Mineral County, but Missoula County. The big one is the Frenchtown East and West Crack and Seat project. We just opened bids yesterday on that project. It looks like Riverside is the apparent low bidder. And that's to go in and crack the concrete, just like we've done up on the pass, and then we'll
Overlay.
resurface it, so that people actually drive in the outside lane and the inside lane.
Instead of the driving lane.
And I'm
I'm
guilty of it
guilty.
too.
Yeah.
I drive in the inside lane a
Well,
lot.
it's okay as long as you watch your rearview mirror.
Yeah, that's what I do. If I see
There's-
somebody coming, then I can back over a bit.
And legislature
Drive
doesn't
really
zap you,
Pardon me?
and legislature doesn't zap you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Had
it's,
that bill this year that you could add to driving the other day.
so that one, now, just, we'd actually be under construction now. But the issue is, or it wasn't an issue, it was kind of a good thing for us. The project was identified to put some tensile strength median steel cable in the project. There was some safety features that were, or issues that were identified. So that was the fix. And so the safety folks came to us and said, it was about, what, $1.5 million or so. The story I was told is there was a project in Billings that was having problems, couldn't be delivered, so you guys have something? And we said, sure, we've got this one, and so it's worth it to us, because that's $1.5 million above and beyond our core program. So we delayed the project to get that rail put in, and otherwise they'd be under construction right now, but to us, the $1.5 million was worth it. So, long story short, they will do half of the interstate. I'm not sure which side they'll select, but they'll do half of the interstate this year, and then next year they'll do the other half, and then chip the whole thing, and we'll be done with it next year. So it's our worst piece of interstate. I don't think I have to tell you guys that. It's pretty poor. It'll be good to get it fixed. Another project in the Missoula area is the interstate from that concrete at milepost 94 all the way to the Van Buren. We went in and did some work, and we noticed that we were getting some distress in the asphalt, some premature cracking and rutting. Had our surfacing folks come in and look at it and said, yeah, you're getting some deterioration. So we're gonna go in, and that's a high priority project for us. We're not sure when we'll build it, but we're gonna go in and take off the asphalt, put on new asphalt, and a few other things. Probably you'll see that in the next couple seasons.
Like at the bottom of White Hill where there's that big chuck hole.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
when we did that 6-7 years ago, it's funny when you open these things up, you know, concrete's a great bridge. But what happens when they built the interstate, it wasn't reinforced. So it's not a true bridge, so those slabs settled. So we went in to repair it, and when we opened it up, there was nothing but just wet clay underneath the entire fill. Well, you know how steep that fill is, so you had to Band-Aid it back together, and now we've got what we've got. So what we'll probably do is go in and try to reinforce that before we pave over it, with more of a reinforced section. Otherwise, we'll just end up with the same thing in 1 or 2 years, and so we can't do that. That's not very smart. So,
What stretch of median did you identify as that needing that cable barrier in the median? What area
It's gonna be
there?
the whole stretch.
the
Oh,
whole
really? The
stretch
whole-
from
wow.
from 84 to 94.
Wow.
Yep. Yep. So, and then the Frenchtown frontage road, that one's, we're trying to rebuild that. And then we get asked a lot about the elk herd at 9 Mile by the Uson interchange. So we have a project. I'm not sure when it'll be. We're waiting, I think, on the Army Corps of Engineers permit, I believe. And as soon as we get that permit, we're gonna do some wetland mitigations in that Richardson family site that we purchased. So that will come shortly, but the phase 2 is, and it won't be cheap. There's a culvert underneath that fill, that interstate fill. And so we wanna nominate a project that we will, replace that culvert with something a bit larger for animal passage for the elk. But also to put on jump outs and the 8-foot wildlife fence from the 9 Mile interchange to the Uson interchange, because that's just a bloodbath in there. I mean, we get a lot of hits, and Steve puts a lot of BMS signs up there throughout the year. So that's unknown as far as when, we really can't do anything until we get the wetland stuff done. But I do think we may have an opportunity to leverage some safety funds with our interstate funds to make it a little easier, but it will not be cheap, because you have 2 options. You either open cut the interstate, which is a massive project, or we push a new culvert system underneath that big fill, which will be very expensive too. So that's another project in the hopper. And then, so you saw the piece on the interstate from 34-7 to 43 where the concrete's good enough that we're not gonna do the crack and seed asphalt paving. We're going to, we go in with a mechanical saw that basically cuts out divots for the dowel, reinforcement between the slabs. And so we're gonna go through there and do that reinforcement throughout the concrete because it's good enough, and then we'll diamond grind the whole surface when we're done. We are gonna have our surfacing folks come up next month to look at the next section, which is, between Drexel and Superior. So it's basically the 28 to the 35. And I've talked to our guys in Helen, and I wanna do the same thing. They think we can. We'll probably have more slab replacement. Reason why, as Steve very well knows, and you guys know, we've spent a lot of money starting in 2010 from Lookout all the way down to where we're at in this crack and seat thing. And if you go up to, say, Saltese, it doesn't look like the asphalt's 3 years old, it looks like it's 13 years old. And we have some significant concerns at how viable that's gonna be in the future. Whereas I think the concrete surfacing is gonna be far more durable in that climate.
Because of the weather.
Because of the weather and the water. Just when Steve had to close the interstate earlier this year, when we had 3 feet of water standing up by the pass, and then many, many other areas, your asphalt's just not gonna last. Not with probably 20% truck traffic, and I don't know how many vehicles we have up there a day. It's not gonna last. And so, kind of an experiment on the Idaho side, they just finished their concrete section, and we're gonna watch that. But at some point, and it will be in the future, but at some point, we're gonna have to address that interstate on an expensive scale. Because I'm very concerned that, you have that kind of wear and tear, our meat lines are failing, the water's infiltrating the mat, it's just gonna blow up on Steve. And that's, it's kind of a shame because it's what we could afford, but we spent tens of millions of dollars to do that. And it's not gonna last like it would in most areas of the state. And so we have some concerns about that. going forward. And that's really, the specific area is really from zero, from Lookout Pass to, I would say, the 16, right around the 50,000 silver dollar bar. I mean, it's certainly not easy from there into St. Regis either, but that first 16 miles is our biggest concern. So yeah, that's kind of some things going on. You know, one of the things that I would kind of keep in mind is we tend to look at this page and the specific projects, but these job order contracts that have all these locations, you know, they might seem fairly minor when you're putting project work together, but when the contractor's putting the traffic control out and dropping lanes, they become pretty significant, pretty quick. And-
People notice them really quick.
And I think, you know, it might look like, oh, these are just minor projects, but, you know, we do the work mainly in the summer, when we have the traffic, and, you know, there's what, 12 to 18, depending upon the contract, that's a lot of disruption. And it's one thing, I think, that we've learned over the years to not take it for granted, but to try to really get the word out to the public. So just wanted to bring that up, that even though it just seems like this sidebar, as far as impact to the public, it has every bit the impact as a lot of these projects do. So yeah. And then maybe a couple other, you know, it's in Sanders, but Montana 200 from Thompson Falls to Plains. You know, we finished the bridge recently, just east of Thompson Falls. We have one parcel to acquire on the next piece, just off of the east end of that project, to get us down to the flat, Teddy Flat. And if we can get that, that's one we're motivated to get out the door in the next couple of years. And then that just leaves the Eddy East, the point where the Rock Mountain juts out into the highway, which juts out to the railroad, which juts out to the river. So that one, the good news about that is we do have the property for that. So it's a matter of completing the design, making sure we're on the same page with the railroad, and then I think we have that slated for 2020, if I remember.
Are you gonna
right.
do some blasting in that project?
Yeah, oh, yeah, yep. Yeah, that'll be a significant, I mean, that project's, I think, less than 2 miles long, and it's about $15 million. So it's a pretty expensive project. But it's needed. But the beauty about that project is once it's done, then we have a more of a modern day corridor from Plains to Thompson Falls. So that'll be a relief. Those are old projects, been on the books for a long time. So it'll be done. Steve will be happy. Happier. So.
Yeah.
So anyways, any questions for us?
You could, intersection St. Regis, going west, past Shoulders in there. Whose? Yours? His? Yours?
You mean Shoulders, the towing?
In front of Shoulders and Tony in there.
Yep.
I've been approached a couple times. Shoulder pushes everything.
We are looking at that. We are looking at right-of-way boundaries in there.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought somebody would
That
have.
came to a head here with the flea market this weekend.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to determine where that is and get that cleaned up, so.
Okay. I was gonna do something long before now, but I know that a couple people had said that they were gonna bring it up, and so I don't know, but I kind of thought probably had been, but.
We are aware, yes. Yes.
And so the big hole at Diamond truck stop here, turn to Diamond Road, that's coming soon to be repaired, that big hole on Diamond Road?
I don't know what the plan is.
That's what I was told by
Yeah.
John Benda and Bob Boson, is that
Okay.
I think the contractor was gonna address that.
So, who worked on Fourth here? Fourth Avenue?
That was
The corner right here.
contractor, I think.
It's the contract.
State, I believe. It was you
Yeah,
guys, right?
yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's talking about a different intersection now, Ed. He's not talking about he's talking about the one on this side of the interchange Right here by the courthouse up to the stop sign.
Okay.
Is that city or is that state?
They just fixed it.
Oh, they did?
It's fixed.
Oh, who'd
Yeah.
fix it?
State.
We did.
Oh, so that's yours too?
Yeah, I believe that's ours. I believe that belongs to us.
Hmm. Is
The
that
the
because,
city's very adamant from the off-ramp to theirs, it's theirs.
oh, because considered part of an interchange or something?
I don't know, it was, that's,
The history books on the days of Montana 10 to the interstate are very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, who came up with that idea, huh?
So what about the street out here and the bridge going across the river there?
That's ours.
Okay,
Yeah.
so is there any work gonna be done on the, I mean, this bridge is getting quite a few holes in it. Are they gonna address the holes in the bridge?
We'll patch the deck the best we can. Yep.
so MDT has, there's the old Pike store, the post office building sitting back there, the old fire hall is sitting back there. Out there in the middle of that, there's actually 2 old lots out of the town site that MTT has out there. And the Trails Committee that the Forest Service is getting revived and everything, they don't have enough parking for people up there at the trailhead for the Vista Trail going up. And they're looking for an alternative parking place that they could sign. Who should they?
That would be Carla,
Yeah, Carla Haas and Helena.
up for a potential lease. Or Greg, or
Yeah, Carla would be the one to contact. Carla
Okay,
Haas,
I-
H-A-A-S.
What's that?
H-A-A-S. Yeah.
Steve, talking about bridge patches, what about the bridge there in St. Regis going up to the state shop?
we continually fight that. We patch that all the time, you know.
I've had a lot of questions. What are they gonna do with that, you know?
Continue to patch.
Yeah.
So, yep. Yeah, it's not, we know it's not in good shape. We just keep-
They drive over it all the time.
Yeah, I know.
keep patching and patching.
That's what, and those are great examples of why we're, not that we don't have road issues, but we're so far behind, and it's not so much on, you know, the capital jobs, you know, where you do the big rehab or the replacement, it's just the maintenance.
Yeah.
That's why,
Yeah.
actually, just in the last 2-3 years, you know, Kent Barnes has just developed kind of a maintenance system, you know, for federal aid work, which is a lot of what you see in these job order contracts. It's what we call bridge maintenance. You know, for years, we've had, we call it a pavement preservation program for our road jobs. And so recently, he's been developing a program for the bridge for, you know, this very, very issue.
We did a bunch of that work with our, some patching work last year. We did a lot on Mullen and East Mullen Road and stuff like that. Right now, I'm not able to do any more of that right now just because of funding and I just don't have the manpower to do that stuff right now. So we're focusing on our core stuff. You know, our signs, delineators, stockpile sites. I mean, we're, when I say we're squeezed, you know, and we're gonna focus on our core stuff. And the chip seals and some of the other things we've been able to do are gonna be, with maintenance forces, are gonna be drastically cut back, so.
Yeah.
What's the plan for the
Big way.
south side?
Is it
Yeah,
enough of your maintenance budget just putting up guardrail back up on the west end?
yeah,
And then
it's
come up with
expensive.
we all
It
agree
takes
to it.
manpower
I
and,
want to keep on the deal well before we sign the agreement. So then, and then I kind of brief T-Bone on it. So if we all agree that's a good compromise on the road we discussed in there, who should draw a MOU or whatever?
we can work on
draw it.
something.
We've done that before. We've
Okay.
got one with Valley County, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we've got something north too that was fairly recent, but basically what we'd be looking at is taking that stretch over.
Okay.
Ownership won't change.
Ownership
on
won't
either
change.
Just maintenance.
We would
just-
take maintenance of
Just
that,
trade-
we would
trade
take,
maintenance,
we would trade
yeah.
maintenance with it,
Mhm.
with another route that you guys deemed acceptable. We're thinking about that little Joe Road out of St. Regis. And then that allows us at that point to go in there and make some improvements on that road. As long as you guys still have. some
Without
mix
ownership,
money.
without maintenance, it was hard for you to justify.
It's hard, because I figured out some equipment and manpower costs in there, and it was pretty substantial.
Mhm.
And I have to get an even trade if I don't maintain that road.
Well, it's a bigger issue than that. I mean, what really is the roadblock for us is it's hard for us to spend state funds on non-state facilities.
Right.
And therefore, the way we've gotten around that in the past is there's just, and I could, we have them Flathead County, Lake County, Valley County, Steve's aware of others, where the roads made sense. We don't want to get into trading of ownership. That gets very, very messy. But we just trade maintenance responsibilities, and then that's the way you get around that. And it's a win-win. It just makes sense for everybody involved. And so if we did that, that's when, with the 50,000, and then with whatever resources we can get, then we don't have that hurdle anymore.
Right.
Then we can legitimately go in and spend state forces and the money involved to actually do that.
Yep.
So,
And I think we can work something
So-
out. I'll get with you in the next 2-3 weeks. I'll come up
Okay.
and we'll look at some things and we'll start working on an agreement and see if we can get this done.
Very good.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, thank you guys. Glad you were here, T-Bone. And you can check with Brenda, make sure they still have their 25,000.
Yeah, I'll do that stuff on Monday, but I'm pretty sure that we'll still be good to
Okay, with the city.
move forward.
So I have one other thing I don't know how involved you guys are, but, and Shane in particular has been working with, is it Territorial? I forget who the engineer is that's doing that work on 135 in St. Regis.
Territory.
Yeah,
It's Territorial, yeah. So, have you guys been involved in that at all? That discussion much about what is being looked at?
Yeah, no, we have, and
Okay.
I certainly have, because
Okay.
technically one part of that project was like assigned to me, but
Okay,
we reassigned
okay.
that part of the project to put it in there, because there was one of the grant opportunities that came to the county. and
So
stuff.
one of the things, and Shane's been asking me about it, and, are we supportive of the project? And because we would be looking at, and, part of the justification, if the road starts to wear and tear on us, we would be looking at nominating a core project to help out with the construction of it. But I have a couple of concerns. One of them, and the reason I want to make sure that you guys in particular know about all of this, is we've talked about this for several years, in that if we curb and gutter that, which is my understanding, that's the proposal, then that curb and gutter, now we're concentrating stormwater. So then you gotta find an outlet for it. And it's gotta be treated. And the issue is that, I was told that they were working, or they were gonna talk to you guys about it, because that would be, somebody's gotta maintain it.
So I didn't know that was gonna have storm and gutters in that, Tim.
Oh, no, it
Yeah.
was, and I'm waiting for the barrage, because Mr. Coffee Shop down there is all of a sudden gonna have a full curb and gutter all in front of that coffee shop, and there's gonna be one entrance, and he's not gonna have all of the swinging.
A
and
loop,
the-
yeah.
A
And
loop and all that.
that's another concern of mine, is anytime we even go in with our core projects, when you go into an open area that has that, and you say, well, we're gonna curb and gutter this thing, we have certain standards that we have to go by, and so, something like what you're talking about, I mean, a lot of times you get a 40-foot apron or so, and one or two approaches, and you get into this approach issue, because you're now taking this length and going 1, 2, or just one, and usually the landowners are not excited about that at all. I mean, we usually get some pretty stiff resistance to that. So I have concerns about that, and also, are you guys willing to maintain any stormwater facilities? Because, we're kind of not. And the reason I say that is, you heard about the budget, but stormwater, whenever we get into curb and gutter stuff, stormwater becomes a big deal. It becomes expensive. And I just want to make sure that you guys are fully engaged in the ramifications. Not that it's a bad project, but usually when you look at something that seems pretty simple with a curb and gutter, you concentrate it and it's got to be treated. And that's how it's got to be permitted through DEQ. And that gets pretty involved. And I don't know of how extensive those conversations have been, and I
Well,
just,
those conversations have all kind of been able to just lead to the point where the real commitment out of that is that not only did the St. Regis Resort Board commit to that project and commit funds to it and everything else, they've always kind of had this alluding to that we're gonna be responsible for the maintenance. It's been brought up at the meetings, and they're kinda going, well, yeah, we can see that that's on us, we're really pushing this and stuff, but, you know, when that gets formalized, I'll be really glad to see it, but I don't think it's been formalized yet, I don't.
because, you know, typically, I mean, I don't know anything about them, but just so you guys are aware, we learned, I'll say the lesson the hard way, in that we signed, so typically, we sign agreements only with other governments for maintenance, so counties and cities and so forth. So when they built US 93 from Lowell to Hamilton, they built that in many segments. And so that we signed agreements with the Routt Valley County Commission on maintenance, and there was a lot of maintenance down there. Well, what had happened is that, it's a long story short, that corridor got challenged in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. It was pretty messy. So to make it happen, the county commission and MDT said, well, let's just try to work out some agreements. So we did. Well, when these things are all done, there's a lot of stuff. There's boulevards, there's shared use paths, there's concrete sidewalks, there's luminaires, there's all kinds of fun things that cost a lot of money to maintain over the years. And what I didn't understand when I first was told about this, they said, well, Valley County delegated that to these different civic groups up and down the corridor. And I was like, okay, where's your agreements? And I didn't have any agreements, and most of these civic groups were retired folks that thought it was a great idea, but
Didn't have any
probably
revenue,
not, probably not the best people to maintaining shrubbery and pulling weeds in the center of US 93 without traffic control. So one of the things that, you know, that we would do is when we sign an agreement, in this case, it would be with Mineral County to do that, and then however you guys delegate that would be, you know, between you and St. Regis, but our agreement would be with you.
Oh, I see.
And that's one of the things, and I mean, if you talk.
The more stable entity.
Yeah, because, I mean, you know, the resort board comes and goes, pretty soon they're not there, and it's like, well, we have an agreement with a ghost. So that's just.
Well, and we did we not send out a letter saying that, you know, in the event of that, we would agree to?
I think what Ed's saying is he'd like it from probably the beginning, not if the resort board goes. He wants the agreement with us, and we can get the money from the resort board. So then if the resort board ever goes away, the agreement stays the same.
Right. But my other thing is, I just want you guys to be fully aware of this.
Yeah.
And I would, if I was you, if I was a county commissioner, I would want to be fully aware. And the reason why is because every time we ever get into a project, when you are, you know, concentrating stormwater and permitting it, it becomes something that seems like a small issue, it becomes a big deal.
Right.
And it's, you gotta acquire property, you gotta treat it.
Unintended consequence, unforeseen.
And so I'm not trying to be Johnny Raincloud or say anything's bad, I just wanna make sure that,
Just the facts.
just the facts, so that you can make an informed decision going forward.
Well, I'm glad you did. I wasn't aware of that, Ed, so.
Well, that's what they said all along, was that sidewalk
Hey,
and
would you bring me,
storm drains.
Oh, I mean,
Five,
but
six more
when someone just says
copies
storm
of
drain,
it.
you just think, let it go off the road and into
Yeah.
a ditch,
Yeah.
but treating it and some of these things that
Both
have.
pages, because there's a
Yeah.
paragraph on the back.
Systems
but
usually
just
aren't
print
bad
them off.
until they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, even if you could say, well, you don't need a great big area as an outfall, you'll need something most likely semi-mechanical, whether those are point wells and so forth. And either way, it's just something that is far different than just an open slope, where you just let the thing run off into the ditch and nobody thinks about it. So, again, not trying to think it's a bad project, I certainly think it's a good project, and when the road deteriorates, I'm willing to take a look at our core funds But in order to do that, we gotta make sure that, and in their defense, I mean, they're saying, well, are you going to commit a project to it? And so it's kind of the chicken and the egg thing. But I just have to say, I mean, before I could commit $1 of money with all the competitive needs we have, the cards have to be on the table, and unfortunately, somebody's gotta take a risk with some money, so.
Appreciate your candidness.
Yep.
'Cause
Yep.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Anything else for us?
No, but thank you guys once again, and
Yes,
thanks again
thank
for, hopefully we can work this other thing out, and that's a great
We'll
news
get
to all
something
of us.
figured out.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
thank you for taking the time. too,
Yeah.
On a Friday, on a nice
Yeah.
Friday.
On the agenda, the Flat Creek Trust Properties, EPA, DEQ, are any of those folks coming, Forest Services? Oh, you're with DEQ?
EQ.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not know that.
This is Joel Chavez, Roman.
What was your name, sir?
Joel Chavez.
Joel Chavez, okay. And your name?
I'm Al Archer with EPA.
Oh, okay, I'm Roman.
Dwayne Simons,
Lori.
West End.
Oh yeah, I guess we got name
Yeah.
tags. Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you guys.
Okay, so are you gonna start off, Tim? What's going on with that?
Well, a past, at least, discussion, more of the line of rumor about what would potentially happen with trust properties. They are part of the settlement that the Montana Environmental Trust that was set up to oversee, and Joel can correct me anytime in here, but the ASARCO settlement gave money to the DEQ, but also money was set into these trusts, and the trust is to be an environmental overseer of those properties. There's not really, at that time when the trusts and the money exchanges are getting set up, it's not set there and built into this thing to say, oh, what's going to happen to these properties in the future, because the concentration, the effort is that these need to be remediated, cleaned up, and taken care of. So we're well into that part of the process where the remediation is certainly happening and occurring. But at least from my perspective, there's always going to be a pretty significant long-term issue up there with that property, and that's going to be that there's always going to be a mine at it on one of the trust properties, and so that future process to address that mine audit is going to be a multi-agency process to do that. But in the meantime, to sit there and see what may happen to those properties once they get cleaned up and are at the status of remediated, and we're still a few years away from that, because even with the DEQ cleaning it up, then the EPA is obligated to do a secondary review of that process and that cleanup, so we will have more information in the future. But given all of that, it doesn't mean that these properties are owned by the trust, and if they were saw fit, I guess they could dispose of those properties. In that discussion and along that way, then with Carol and the Forest Service, is that if there was some preference or some interest, and a specific interest of having the Forest Service maybe consider or have a process of obtaining those trust properties, is that we need to do something a little more formal. We need to put that into motion for the Forest Service. It takes a considerable amount of time to accomplish something with that. We can be assured at this time that the properties are not going to transfer in the middle of Joel's process, because they're in the middle of it, so there's not going to be anything that would happen in the near immediate future. But several years down the road, there could be a situation where these old mining claims could potentially be something that could be transferred to someone. Along that line, then, if the Forest Service is to be involved with that, they need a considerable amount of lead time to get into their process to sit there and say that they could be interested in even obtaining these properties. So today, hopefully that we're here, we're gonna meet if there's any other questions or discussions, and if I haven't done a adequate summary of it, but it was just to start the process for everybody to agree that the better route to go is to have these trust properties, if possible, and if it can be done, that they would actually become Forest Service ownership and that. And then beyond that, somebody else can talk about what ramifications that might be, because I have my ideas, but.
Well, I can tell you about the process. Ally and I sat down with DEQ attorney and EPA attorney via telephone the other day to ask about this very question, about what is the long-term process for disposition of the property. And it is, like Tim said, it is currently held by the trust. The long-term is, the short answer is, the property can be transferred directly to the United States Forest Service from the trust if the state and Forest Service agree to it, with the comments from EPA, has a role as advisory on it. So certainly the Forest Service can take it if the state agrees. That's in that process, and likewise the state can take it if the Forest Service agrees, and that part would be by direct transfer from the trust. So that's the first tier. After that, if neither of those parties chose to take it, the trust could sell the property, and but any sale of the property would have to be approved by both the United States Forest Service and the state of Montana, with an advisory role from the EPA. So the mechanism to transfer directly to the Forest Service or the state is already in place. It's there, and that is in the bankruptcy settlement. So that process is there, and it was established for that purpose.
That's good.
So on the properties, they're all padded mining claim, the one's a mill site, but the two long ones along the creek are about 100 acres, 99 something, and then up by the mill, there's a couple of other smaller properties, but they're padded private property held by the trust currently.
So what's the total acreage, Joel?
I think it's 99 on the creek. I think it's about 145 or something.
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere right in there. The stuff on the creek is certainly the largest, and just the mill and around at it is a short description of the boundaries. Up next to you guys, borders Jim and Evelyn. So yeah,
About 145.
right in there. So that's the short story. Like Tim said, we're up there right now. We're remediating the creek. While the state's doing, the state had got money. We had some money from the settlement. The trust had some money for the settlement for removal action up there. The state, I got the trust money is in our hands, except for $250,000. We got $1.75 million from them. We had about $2 million. And that's what we're currently doing right now, is removing the contaminants along the creek. What Ally did and I did, what the state is trying to do is a removal action, which is, that's a term, and it's in a Superfund jargon. It means basically we could have gone in there and just, did the best we thought we could, it changes color, dig that, and call it good. We went a step further. So we've actually characterized the property. We've done a lot of additional sampling. Pretty sure we know where the bottom of it is. So our idea is to, when we do complete our action, that when Ally, EPA comes in and does a remedial investigation, they simply won't have to waste their time or their money along the creek. We're gonna get it out of there. So that's done once and for all, and it won't be further disturbed. So that's what we're doing right now. I've been getting, the things we're concerned about was arsenic, carcinogen, cadmium, carcinogen, and lead. Not a carcinogen, but it's no good for your kids. We're getting those three elements pretty effectively. There's some zinc in there that's a little deeper than, quite frankly, we have money to get, but it doesn't have near a risk at all. So I think we're getting it, everything we want to get pretty effectively right now. So that's as of today.
The zinc, that's because it leaches, it's able to.
Yeah, it is more mobile, so it's going deeper, and we just only have so much money. And so we have a cushion that we're going to do a survey on the volumes that we're taking out right now next week. So we'll get those numbers and see if we haven't got some leeway to chase it a little more. But the main things are the arsenic, the cadmium, and the lead, and we're definitely getting those. So it's so far so good.
Did he answer your
So
concerns?
Have a little discussion about the adit there, and what perspectives are that you have of that, so.
The only, for like in terms of property transfer, it becomes the new owner's liability if they take the adit before it's cleaned up. We still have the whole watershed for EPA's part. They came into the town. You guys are probably familiar with removal versus remedial because they both happened in the town, but the remedial part still has to happen in the watershed. So we'll look at nature and extent of contamination. And since I'm being a part of Joel's removal, I'll hopefully have a good handle on that on the creek, but the adit and the rest of the mill site will be, or the mine site are still to be investigated. And after that, we determine what needs to be done, what's feasible, and then a record of decision will be made. And so that's where we kind of know what will be done, but it will be made to be protective of human health and the environment. But if the Forest Service were to take the property before, then they become liable for the adit. So they're financially will have to be a part of that.
So part of the agreement, could there be an agreement where the EPA would be doing research, trying to characterize that and do that part of it, even if the Forest Service was going to take that property?
I'm like not sure on how the timing would work out. If they, like I think it takes a couple of years for, as I've heard, for the Forest Service to really get ownership. And so by that time, we'd hope to start an investigation at the adit and know more. So if it really is a couple of years, I'm sure we'd have investigated more.
And they're also discrete properties. They're separate
Yeah.
mineral patented claims, so it's not necessarily all or nothing either.
They could take the creek and hold off on the adit until we know more.
So right now, who's going to do anything with the audit?
So it's a part of the MPL site of Flat Creek, and we're on a list with all the other mine sites, not mine sites, Superfund sites in the country to get funding. And so when Flat Creek gets funding, we can begin the investigation at the adit. So EPA's budget is kind of a mess right now, but we're hoping to get funded. It's a smaller site compared to others in the country, and it's one of the last parts. And so hopefully it'll be prioritized because they want to get Superfund sites off the MPL list. And Scott Pruitt, the new administrator, has kind of said we want to start delisting Superfund sites, and Flat Creek would be a great one to get money for, get that adit done. and
Wrap
then-
it up.
Yeah,
Are you saying then that the EPA is going to clean it up?
yeah.
Right, thank you.
I know you didn't want to hear that.
It doesn't bother me,
Okay.
I just wanted to know whose responsibility is going to be, state, EPA, or who?
It'll be EPA's. It is a part of the trust properties, but since the money was so limited, they could only prioritize creek or adit and not get both. Joel picked the creek. It's more of a human health area and was what he could do with the money he had, leaving the adit for when we could get funding. And we kind of decided that since DEQ is doing the removal right now, we're gonna let that happen. We can't work on the adit while people are in the watershed because of the risk of a blowout, such as happened in Colorado. So we have to wait for all the equipment to get out of the watershed, and then we can put in some protective, well, for when we start investigating the adit. That's kind of the holdup now, budget, and we're not gonna do anything while people and equipment are working below.
And that's both DEQ and Forest Service.
For Oh, for
Working in the
the,
creek.
we're in the creek, yeah, so Forest Service
So-
will begin.
So no possibility of looking at something for 2 years?
I think we can safely start an investigation while the Forest Service begins. Like, if we could get funding
Okay.
by the end of this summer, the Forest Service has that really small last part,
Right.
and I think the risk goes down a lot.
Just because of the distance over.
Yeah, and they're not gonna have the same heavy equipment that the state has, so. There is a requirement for an audit consultation right now with EPA headquarters, and Joel put one together last year, so we already have an audit consultation for the Iron Mountain one with EPA headquarters, so they're looking at that, so when we do get funding, we can begin work.
And that consultation is necessity because of the blowout in Colorado.
Yeah, it
You
just,
can't do business. If you hadn't had that blowout down there,
it
how
would
would
be a
it,
lot different.
how would it have went? It would have,
Well, there,
I mean, you still would have had to look for the funding.
there still would have be funding, but you would have just got funding and began work the next day. You have to have approval by headquarters to begin work now, so.
But you had to have approval from EPA to start your work to make sure that,
Yeah, that's why we wrote the document.
Yeah.
And did the research and did it, so we're fine now, but it's helpful because it's already in the mill for Ally and they're
For timing.
nationwide, EPA 's scrutinizing those things pretty carefully, so this one's already in the mill and going, so that's good.
Know about it.
so that was good that actually you guys needed it, but then it's gonna help on the other hand, is that you don't have to go back and, or you don't have to start that and pick it up when it's
Right.
done.
What plan is there for the audit? What are you gonna do with it?
I couldn't really speculate. I mean, I think some sort of water treatment. Hopefully, there needs to be a way to know that it's a steady flow of water, or that it won't ever have a catastrophic release. So it'd either be, I don't think we would block it, but you'd have to either make sure you can account for a steady release of water so that it doesn't get impounded, and then treat the water coming out. So whatever that would include. There'll be a lot of like investigative wells put in and see how much is backed up, and it'll be a slow process, but inexpensive.
Yeah.
But the end result will be safer water coming out and no risk of a blowout.
Are you attempting to cap the area that added?
No, I don't. We don't want to stop water because then it's going to come out somewhere else. So I doubt that will be a solution. But there are mining experts. I am by no means that way yet, but I'm learning a lot being in Montana with mines, and super fun. So I'm not sure what the final solution will be, but I'll leave it in the hands of the experts to help decide.
So Ally, I know until you do some test wells and whatnot, you have really no idea of, what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
What kind of is a time frame? I mean, is it like 2 years normally for those sorts of things for EPA to do
An investigation.
an investigation and whatnot? Or what?
Yeah, I think 2 years would probably be, depending on when we get funding. Like if we get it in the winter, you can start to get your work order in place, and then you could start right in the spring and summer. But if you get money at the end of the summer, it's gonna
So like 2 field seasons
probably,
probably?
yeah, minimum 2 field seasons, I think. Or
Okay.
maybe that'd be maximum 2 fields, because you have if you have just those months to look at just the adit, and it's one adit in Flat Creek, I think that, it's manageable.
So it'd probably be a good estimate of time.
Yeah.
By the way, there is a well put in by a Sarco at the mouth of Hall Gulch.
Okay,
There's an existing one.
okay.
It's flagged right now by the crew.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a,
A well there.
yeah, there is a well.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I know they looked at if water, because the water kind of drops in, when it comes out of the adit, it sinks in right there. When they wanted to see if it was meeting Flat Creek ever. I don't know if that's the one that
I think that is.
that was trying to.
That's the well. It's for that, but I don't, he
It
was,
possibly goes to groundwater.
but a Sarko put that well in.
Yes. About the same, it was approximately a year after they pushed all the old mill stuff
Yeah.
up on the hill, hydro-seeded it, put in that silt fence below it. Then they put that well in. I believe, what's that guy's name that has the background?
Dwayne Reynolds.
Dwayne Reynolds, I think, had something to do with it because it went in the winter and he had to plow out a road.
What year was that, Jim?
No, Lord, no idea.
Late 70s?
Pardon?
Late
No, it
70s?
was
Oh, no.
in the
Oh, no,
90s.
well after that.
It was in the
Dwayne
90s.
was-
Probably in the 90s.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm nosy. I went up there to see what the heck they were doing.
Yeah.
went to Carroll.
And got a hold of Dwayne
I
and
didn't read
said,
it yet.
yeah, I found out I was gonna put a well over here. I go, okay.
I'm pretty sure the attic is on that side.
Mm.
But we can, you know, they're all 140 years. Kind of there's no lot of needs for property. 131 acres out there.
Oh, okay, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Well, that's, yeah, I don't know.
So that was kind of the process, is just, I drafted you up a letter for your consideration. If you're interested in that, I think would probably formalize the process and the step, at least from what I understand from the Forest Service, is that they would like some kind of acknowledgement for them from Mineral County for the process, so they could deal with it.
I'd be interested in hearing from Carol. Although land has been offered to the Forest Service, does the Forest Service have any interest at all in it?
At this time, up to now, at least, Jim, we really don't. I mean, it's not critical habitat or anything that we would specifically be looking at acquiring for us, but a letter from the commissioners certainly would, have some importance to the Forest Service, I think. And if signed, I would present it on Tuesday to Tim Garcia, the forest supervisor, and the land staff, which would be starting to deal with this. We don't have a pot of money just sitting, waiting to acquire lands. We would have to, it's prioritized, almost by the region and by the West Side lands, which includes part of Idaho. So we would have to get on the list and see where we come out as far as how high we rank in priority to other lands that the agency wishes to acquire for whatever reason, and then see what funding we can find or what funding would become available.
Right now, I would say it would probably be viewed as a liability by any land owner. If the Forest Service decides not to take the land, then what would possibly be the ownership?
Well, the other option is the state can certainly do it, but at this point, that,
Oh,
there's no
yeah,
discussion taking place. Mostly because first things first, is get that.
Exactly.
Yeah, DNRC, but we have not talked to them yet.
So where does this money, the Forest Service says they're having to look for money, where does that money go? Who gets that money?
They wouldn't actually have to pay for the land,
No.
for the settlement, the consent decree settlement agreement, if it's Forest Service, state, county.
It would just transfer directly,
That's what I
and
thought.
even the
Yeah.
fees for,
Okay, so you're not looking, the trust isn't looking to
no,
be
but
paid.
it says no, it's specifically that the land would be transferred at no cost to the property to either the state or the Forest Service.
Okay.
There would be some administrative fees, but the trust still has some money that, for this property that I do not have. And I would imagine that would be the mechanism to pay for the administrative fees to make a title transfer. Whatever, coroner surveying, whatever.
So thanks
But they
for
have
clarifying.
some money, and the property would transfer at no cost for the property
To
to
the
either
agency.
agency.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so no, it's no
So-
cash.
Okay.
Joel, the trust gets to the point where you've, pretty much, we're ready to say, but they have X amount of dollars
They-
that says,
They have to, it either gets spent here,
yeah,
On remedial activities
or it can go to one of the other 3 trust sites.
well, can it,
But the other 3 trust sites are East Helena, Mike Horse Mine out of Lincoln, and Black Pine Mine out of Phillipsburg. Those things are being worked on. They're about done. So the money remaining would have to stay here. And quite frankly, when we're done, when we do our work, if we do a great job, we're still gonna have weeds that need taken care of. That doesn't end ever in western Montana. So, you know, there's always, but that money is tied to here, and it cannot be just taken elsewhere
right.
willy-nilly, so.
I understand that, but I didn't know if it was so tight that if there was, money remaining at the end of the project, that it just sits there and you use it for up here.
It has to be here.
Primarily for here.
You
But
bet.
it
Which
could
is
be-
good.
It could be transferred if,
It could be, but if there's any use whatsoever on this property, that would take the wind out of sails to move it elsewhere,
so.
And they
guaranteed.
still have the adit, so there's no way.
Yeah, I mean, right now Montana Trust has the adit, so
They
it's
do?
there.
Mhm.
Okay,
And that's why I couldn't get all of mine,
yeah,
basically.
okay.
But it's still there, and it cannot leave the property.
So you're looking for funding though, but at some point in time, if that funding hasn't come through, then trust funding still could step in and pick up.
Yeah, but I'm
don't know
not
how that would
predicting that
work,
there'll be
but-
money left, yeah.
So, did I understand when we were on that walk around, that, somebody said, is it the DEQ that bought the repository? Who bought the
Yeah,
repository?
the Department of Environmental owns that property.
And that's not gonna change, I mean,
That is not
that's
gonna
just gonna be a forever.
We have the responsibility, well, the responsibility for the repository maintenance is both EPA and DEQ, but honestly, it is DEQ, and we have the properties titled to DEQ, and we have that responsibility.
So then, the reason I asked that is because I was just asking Carol, with the exception of our land, isn't the rest of that pretty much surrounded by national forest, so it would just fit into their forest? And she said, well, she thought that was state land, and I thought I understood from the
There's-
walk around that the DEQ.
DEQ
owned-
has title that's
That's
correct.
the repository.
But,
But everything else-
but there are some DNRC lands up there.
There's some DNRC and Stimson on
Land
one end.
swap
Yeah.
between DNRC and Forest Service.
The next largest adjoining landowner is Forest Service to the trust property,
Okay.
but touching pieces of land.
That was where the repository is.
Okay, but so is there more state land still?
What's that?
Is there any more state land up
There's
there?
a DNRC property, but it's mostly Stimson, around there, in the immediate vicinity, bordering the creek, is the USFS.
Forest Service.
Okay. You bet.
Do the commissioners have any indication whether they will sign this agreement or not?
Actually, it's in a letter.
A letter.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think, Jim? We've got 10% private land, and you're usually pretty opinionated. What do you think about eliminating some more private land and giving it to the government?
You know, I don't know. It's already out of there. I realize this is happening all over in the county. I don't know. I really
You don't have any interest in ever owning any of that land? You think it's too much of a liability? You'd as soon see it.
I don't have any money to buy it.
Well, it's for
And there's
free.
no timber. So I can't buy it and log it,
Yeah.
and pay for it, so.
You could have an adit tour. Come see Jim's adit tour.
Yeah, a little tourism.
My goal is, I really don't want to have neighbors, we'll just leave it at
Oh,
bottom line
okay,
there.
okay.
I've lived there 44 years with an absentee owner of a Sarco who didn't do anything. One time they logged the property, which was no big deal. They were strictly an absentee owner. I'd just as soon not have a bunch of other people living there.
Well, I think that land would be hard to sell.
Yeah,
Well, it's,
probably would.
to
would
the
anybody
private-
be able to live there anyway, Tim?
I in good conscience would not want to see somebody drill a well up there for a water source. I mean, it's just so counterintuitive to go through who knows what and do that. We might have some more information in the future about, you know, what the water quality is up there, because I understand that there's still gonna be an investigation of side canyons and areas up there for potential water source and stuff, but anywhere within the trust properties right now to drill a well is so counterintuitive that it just doesn't make any sense why you would be going through that and having that potential contamination for a water source.
People are living up here adjacent to the old dump.
Okay.
All right. I'm not gonna discuss
a good
their
point, Jim.
mentality.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess you didn't ask me that question, Roman, but my add-on to his answer would be that our family's hope is that it would go to the Forest Service, that the Forest Service would envelope that into their property because it's so next to it, and so we would be very supportive of that. However, if that's not what happens, and it does become that it looks like it's gonna get sold somewhere, we certainly, our family certainly would like to know that, and that would be of interest because the children who will be there, because that's where this land will go, our land will go to our kids, they would want that opportunity. So I guess I wanted to say that in a public meeting, is that our hope is that it would go to the Forest Service, because it fits right into their land. But if it didn't, we would certainly want to know that.
That's just kind of a predicament because we're needing private ground so badly for expansion and a tax base, which we don't have. But then we got this land that's kind of hamstrung by the fact that it's Superfund site. And so I was just curious because I know that Jim would be the first one to grab me in the store if I donated some land to the government in another situation. So
There's nothing to apologize for you.
Yeah.
I appreciate
What the
it.
hell do you think you're doing?
But yeah, I'm glad to hear you. I should have said the Schultzes, but
That's
I
fine.
addressed Jim. But
That's fine.
It's just me.
He's the mayor.
usually the louder one that gets the squeaky wheel gets the grease head. So.
Yeah, I know.
And it could go to the state, you know, one way or the other. You know, this, if the state wanted it or felt should be in with DNRC, that's certainly wonderful. We can see certain conflicts that might arise.
Yeah, and we certainly know that Mineral County doesn't want to have the future liability on its hands. So if the Carroll is willing to graciously.
I looked up the taxes. It seems to me like but I don't even know if the trust is paying taxes. That'd be interesting.
It's a taxable property, I
It's a
believe they are.
we hope they're paying the tax. Somebody's getting the tax bill.
It's on cadastral.
Yeah, it's going on.
No, it's got
But
them
probably
listed.
something
I think-
like $210 a
I
year.
think it's about 300.
300.
Yeah,
For
they're,
the
I know they're
131 acres total?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
That is
Yeah,
absolutely
'cause there's-
the lowest
With
taxable.
without buildings or.
Probably, but they are
anything.
paying.
Yeah. And I guess there's nobody else here to voice their opinions other than the Schultzes, so. We have this letter. Did you read it too, Lori? And what-
I did.
Anybody have an opinion either way, if we should give the nod to sign this today, or?
Well, I mean, I don't think we have much of a choice. I don't really like any more than you do or Jim does, giving the land to the Forest Service because of the overabundance that we already have. But in this instance, it may be a benefit to us. So I say do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right, so I guess this is a big decision, so I guess we should have a motion for it.
Probably be appropriate to put it in the record that motion to do that, yes.
Okay, so the subject on the table is the letter to Carol Johnson at the Forest Service and to Robert Wingert, environmental engineer of the Forest Service, on Mineral County's desires that the Forest Service take over ownership of this Flat Creek drainage property in question.
I would make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor of the motion to sign the letter, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none?
You take your copies down? Save postage.
Yeah.
We're gonna jump on that one quick. Save postage.
Tim, could you send one over electronically?
Yeah,
For
we'll scan it.
Alex.
Yeah.
That'd be
Will
good.
there ever be a consideration of the Stinson property where the Old Town of Pardee was for remedial action?
There's Stimson mine claims that are
They've got
Superfund site,
Stimson owned.
the mine.
Right, they own the old, where the Town of Pardee, where the
The
mine
town of
was.
Pardee was up.
It's
by
up
the
to draw,
attic.
it's up
Is
to
that
draw.
higher?
Oh, no, Town of Pardee was way up on top of the ridge.
Oh, okay.
No, Stimson's got a pretty bad.
Yeah, and so those are, and there'll be notice of,
Any anticipation was going to be on the investigation?
if there's contamination, they will be contacted with the opportunity to remove it, or, they may be held financially liable to help remove it if they have the capability. But, I don't know if there's contamination up there.
Empirically, my observation, there's not.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff there is mine waste.
It is waste.
It's just waste rock that came out
It
from the
really
tunnel.
is, it looks to me like the dissemination in the veins in the wall rock stuff.
Yeah.
It didn't go,
Mhm.
so that's what I've seen
Like
of
around
walking
there.
around.
And that's kind of natural.
Very natural.
There isn't a lot.
Well,
Just the way those veins work.
We've driven up there, but I've never gotten to see the actual
Yeah.
mine site.
There just isn't much there.
So,
Yeah.
Now you can get up the road thanks to the Forest Service.
yeah.
Well, they bladed it, but the contractors aren't going to let you through right now.
Well,
So I would just like to thank everybody for their time.
All right.
thank you.
And thank you guys for being here.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. Have a good
Thanks.
Memorial
Thank you.
weekend. You too.
Well, if you folks haven't got anything else for us, we'll.
Okay, well, thanks for
There you
coming.
go.
Appreciate your
Good to
time.
meet you. You bet.
Yeah.
Got any questions? You got my email, you got her too, so
Okay.
just send them. and
All right.
We're around, so.
Okay.
All right.